Hey, what's up, guys? This is Adam D'Angeli from the Rescue Michigan Coalition. It's 6 o'clock, so we're just getting started. We've got a very special guest tonight. It's John Reilly, Michigan State Representative, currently serving in his third term. I can see the chat. People are asking where people are, and maybe having used YouTube rather than Zoom was a bad decision. I don't know. I guess we'll find out, but we'll see. Maybe people will start coming in the next few minutes. But we do want to bring our guest on in just a moment here. But we've got some news from the Rescue Michigan Coalition. First of all, a lot of people are wondering what the status is of our election reform proposal, and we were hoping to have a draft by Friday, our new draft, which incorporates the elements of the House or the Senate bills that we like, but that's still in process. We haven't received that just yet, so we're hoping to have an announcement for that probably early to middle of next week. The other big thing that we've been excited to announce is that we have a forum now at rescuemichigan.com, and right now the website has a lot of content on it, but it's mostly been my own. We have a blog, we've got videos that we're posting, but we really want to open it up to people. And of course, with all the social media censorship, there's been a lot of discussion about where people can go to organize and discuss the issues and not be concerned about being censored. We're also looking into possibly setting up a locals page, so we'll see how that goes. But first, we want to announce the forum. Someone says try StreamYard. Well, we'll see all this. We'll try different options, and we'll open up for discussion in just a little bit here. In the meantime, if you guys want to chat, I can see you in the chat. But let's go ahead and bring on our guest. This is Representative John Reilly, and in full disclosure, I was his campaign manager and worked in his office as his legislative director for 3 years. So it's not like this is going to be a hostile interview by any stretch of the imagination. But what I really wanted to discuss with him and to share with you guys is not so much what he does in Lansing, although certainly I think you guys are going to have some questions for him and you'll have plenty of time to ask away. In fact, if you get questions, just post them in the comments section, and I can read them off as we go. But what I think is so exciting about what John has done in his district is organizing serious local groups that are meeting every single week. And we're not talking county-based organizations, we're talking township-based organizations, which is local on a much greater level. If you think about, depending on the county, I'm in Washtenaw County where there's 250,000 people. You're in Oakland County, which I think is well over 1 million people. It's a lot of ground to cover, and there's so much going on in every part of your county that it's more than anyone can keep track of. And having people that can meet locally in kind of a low commitment level involved in going to meetings that you just drive down the street and you're there, meet for an hour, talk about whatever the topics are, is really something special. So why don't we start with how you became a state representative, because it's not the average story. You weren't just a politician that moved up through the ranks. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
So I think it started in 2009 or 10 when I had seen this video about how precinct delegates can actually have a big impact on what's going on. So I became filed for become a precinct delegate, and one of the local guys who I knew from a Republican group said, "Hey, you should be the precinct captain for your township." So with that in mind, I said, all you got to do is recruit people, and I can do that. At the time, I presently do have a irrigation business, so I have a lot of customers from that. And I started asking some of the customers and said, yeah, they would be a precinct delegate. And then I started just actually knocking on doors too, and telling people, hey, we can make a difference here if we now. And I kind of had a goal. I wanted to fill up every position that we had in Oakland Township, which was, I believe, 33. And the previous term we had, I think, 11. So actually, it was successful. I did fill it up. I had 33 people that we got in as precinct delegates. It was the only area in Oakland Township that had every slot filled. So kind of that little goal I'd set there, it worked out good, because then after we became precinct delegates, we said, well, what do we do next? Well, one of the things was we'll start checking out, see what's going on at the township. Because we just wanted to learn more. And lo and behold, we went to one of the meetings and heard that they had some an ordinance package. So we started looking into that ordinance package, and it was pretty alarming to me because we're in a pretty rural area. At least this part of the township that I'm in is, and it had listed things such as, well, you can't store materials next to your barn. You can't. Trying to think of some of the other things. Home-based businesses, only one employee, no other cars, or one car. All these ridiculous rules. So at that point, we said, well, we need to go to the township and fight back against this. Well, we saw quickly that the township people that were in the board, they listened to us, but they were not going to change their tune. They were moving forward with this, and some other projects too, like dam removal that they wanted to spend $400,000 on, which we didn't think made sense. And there was a lot of engineering issues with it, which some of the members called out that they had not even thought about. So in the end, we saw that they're not going to listen to us. We need to run some candidates against these people. And so in Oakland Township, we have a library board and we have a parks board. Both have 7 members. And so what we did was we ran a total of 12 members, trustees, superintendents, all across the board. And we placed 9 of them. And that was primarily because what you alluded to at the beginning here was knocking on doors. So we knocked on a lot of doors. All of us knocked on a lot of doors. I did not run for anything. My wife became the clerk, and we put in a supervisor in the township. We put in a treasurer, a couple of people on the trustees, 3 people on the parks board, and 1 person on the library board. So that was the start of just seeing what happens when you have a group of people who knock on doors a lot. We were very effective. I mean, it doesn't happen very often that you are able to replace a whole township board. And we almost were able to get the parks board. We had 3 members on there, not quite. And we did get someone on the library board that down the road was very beneficial because he warned us about some significant tax increases that were coming up that we're able to fight off. So I got involved locally. And I was I kept on even in that being like a precinct captain. So I would be like in charge of all the delegates. And that was kind of my major role up until 2013, when I saw that that our Republican representative voted for 2 things which made no sense to me, which were the Medicaid expansion and Common Core in schools. So 2 things I disagreed with. I did not believe that a Republican should be voting for such things. I asked him to come over to our house and kind of describe why he voted the way he did. I was not satisfied with his answers. And I said, wow, I think I need to run against this guy, or somebody's got to run against this guy. Well, I wasn't even thinking of myself, actually. I had 2 other people that said that they would be running for it. I said, great. And then in the end, they decided not to run. And so I had to kind of think about it. Lord, is this something you want me to do? I don't know. And so I took a little time, and finally down the road, I decided to run. And I gave a good run, but I lost. That was in 2014. I ended up with 44% of the vote, and I knocked on about 6,000 doors in that for probably over a 3-month period. So, and then 2016, the incumbent was term limited. I basically did the same thing again. I was thinking, should I do this again? I don't know. It's a big commitment, not exactly what I wanted to do, but as it turns out, I did run, knocked on 8,000 doors this time, and I ran against a good challenger who knocked on a lot of doors himself, along with he had some people that worked for him that knocked on a lot of doors. But in the end, I happened to win by a slim margin of 29 votes, which you were there with us, Adam, and it was a very exciting time. And so we
learned all about recounts that day.
That's right. Yeah. So a recount ensued. We lost a few more votes, but we still had enough to win. And so it was the tightest race in the state that year. And I ended up winning 15 votes, and that's how I became a state rep.
So, first of all, you knocked out your whole town council or most of it just by knocking on doors with a group of people. And when you go door to door, like how do you break the ice? I feel like there's a lot of people out there that want to knock on doors, but they haven't done it and they don't know. When you do it for your first time, what's your approach? How do you break the ice with the voter, and what do you say to them?
Well, first off, it's a lot easier when you're in the area. So, hey, I'm John Reilly. I'm an Oakland Township resident, and I just wanted to tell you about something that's going on in the township, and or whatever, and give them some information. And so that, and I've always found that knocking on doors is just a great experience because of the people that you meet. It's really just meeting your neighbors, and it's really the benefits of it are huge. It's just I cannot under it's so many good benefits because all of a sudden you're meeting all the people around you that have all these gifts that have like for instance I remember knocking on one guy's door who was he had a machine shop in his garage. I mean, and so down the road it's like, hey, I needed some stuff done. I went over there. He had a machine shop, made the part up for me. Beautiful. We had a guy who was a chemist. We were in the middle. This is a you remember this, Adam, when we were talking about PFAS. We were making some new regulations, and the word was that the health hazards of PFAS was questionable. It was like undetermined at the time. Well, meanwhile, we've got people saying, "Oh no, this is terrible stuff. This is going to be very, very harmful." Well, I ran into a chemist, and he happened to be he had some patents on PFAS retaining devices or equipment, and he backed up what we had heard, which was that yeah, it's still questionable the health hazards of PFAS. So that was a huge benefit when you hear people who are experts, and it's hard to find those experts because in Lansing you tend to find the people who want all the new laws, but not necessarily somebody who doesn't want to jump in and make new laws yet because, and like in this case, because the information was unclear at the time.
Yeah, PFAS especially. That was for those in the audience that aren't familiar with it. It feels like the next global warming, where they're saying we got to stop PFAS. It's this deadly substance that'll never decompose and never biodegrade, which reminds me of what they were saying about landfills and all that kind of stuff. And they're they claim that it's in the just a few parts per billion, no, parts per trillion
Brilliant,
of,
right?
of, of PFAS is enough to really damage things. And PFAS's main use, or one of them, is in firefighting foam. And they wanted to impose all these regulations on firefighters and require the firefighters report where they were using it, so they had to clean up and do all these other things. And it really makes you wonder when you have Republicans who just they reflexively think, oh, I don't want to be against clean water, and that's all there is to it. And
Yeah,
and the well, I don't know if you want to talk about how things go in Lansing, although feel free to. I do see a couple of comments in the chat, and someone asked, uh, I'm in deep blue Wayne County, and Joe, I hear you. I'm in Washtenaw County, so we're in the same boat. But you want to keep in mind, there are still patriots in every part of Michigan. In Washtenaw County, the vote was 75% Biden to 25% Trump, but that still means there was 50,000 Trump voters in my county. And
right.
yeah, you'll get a few more doors slammed in your face. There's no doubt about that, but you still will make some connections. I mean, you have John, you're in a Republican area, and for people that don't know, Oakland Township, where you live, it's 8 precincts, so it's a fairly small town, but not entirely rural. And there are a substantial number of Democrats in your township, are there not?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There tend to be a lot of environmentalists and people who want to keep things just the way the same. So yeah, this isn't all. And so running into Democrats is not terrible either. I mean, I think if you're just honest with people, I really have not had any terrible encounters that I've feared my life or anything like that. And the reward is so much better because there's people out there who think just like you, and they think that they're like the only one around. And so, and of course, when I go out, I take notes, and then I put them in a database when I come home. One of the funny stories is I had saw a guy with a Ron Paul sticker on the back of his truck, and so I followed him into I think it was a Kroger parking lot or Myers, and so when he got out, I and it was in the area, so I asked him. I said, "Hey, I see you got the Ron Paul sticker. Would you be interested in getting involved with? We have like some political groups." He's like, "Well, I'm kind of busy right now, and in a couple of years, things are going to change." So I just put that in my database. Call back in a couple of years. I call him back in a couple of years, and he was like, "Man, your timing is perfect." He goes, I have some time now." And so he doesn't actually live in the township. He lives in the adjoining area, but he's been a great friend and just a wonderful guy. We've got together, his wife and my wife, and gone out to dinner. And he's a true liberty-minded guy. So you find all these people around you, and it's very encouraging to find all your neighbors. And you'll make lots of friends. And the more effort you put into it, like even right now, I would love to call a lot of the people that I've touched base with over the course of the last 6 years, because I keep and just to kind of say, hey, we're still doing this. In fact, I called a couple people up today. I had some spare time in the car, and I had not talked to a couple people and a couple of these people in a while. I just said, hey, just checking in, and they really appreciate that because they know that every week we've been doing these meetings in the township, and they know that I'm doing that. I send them emails, and but they just haven't been able to make it. But they do appreciate the contact and the friendship. So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and even when people are generally on the opposing side and vote Democrat, there's often an issue that you might find common ground with on that sometimes you can push them a little bit here and there, and you never know where things are going to go.
Oh no, you plus as a politician, you have people that vote for you who are Democrats, and you're Republican just because they like you, and they think they believe that I'm honest, and they may not agree with every policy but they do like the idea that I post all my votes online, and so numerous people that are Democrats have said, "Hey, I'm going to vote for you, John, because I think you're a very transparent, and even though I don't agree with you, I trust who you are."
Yeah, and your Democrat opponents have been calling you an extremist for the last 4 years, and saying so as they go out knocking on doors. But yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't work, does it? Even though you are indeed a very strong conservative in your voting record, but because they know you, that makes a huge difference.
yep, yep.
So so now you've been in Lansing for 4 years, and you have groups that are meeting every single week. What's the format? How do you get people to come week after week and to maintain interest and to get engaged?
Well, it is really not easy to do this. We're learning as we go. When I originally started these groups, or this one group in Oakland Township, which we started in 2000 and I think 11, we met once a month, and we did that until I was elected in 2016, and then it kind of fell, or maybe 17, and then it kind of fell by the wayside just because I had this job now, and I was one that was kind of organizing it, and it wasn't. Which is a flaw. When one person, if he leaves, the thing kind of falls apart. That's not a good sign. And
Mm.
that's one of the changes we wanted to make. So about 2 years ago, we maybe 3 years, I'm not sure, but we started up a group, and he said, "Hey, we're going to meet every week." The advantage of that is if somebody misses a week here or there, hey, they still came once or twice a month, and so that's great, and it allows more people exposure to it, because if it's just one day once a month, you're going to only be able to get you're not going to be able to get that many people. But having it every week, you'll get different people, and you'll have some that are regulars. They come every week. And what these meetings, that what you really want to do is you want to get people to be self-starters, action oriented. That's what our meetings are about. They're not meetings about, okay, we're going to have guest speakers come in and talk to you about a topic. That's some other meetings. That's not our meetings. Our meetings are we are trying to get people engaged, and to recognize that they have to be involved. And if there's many people involved, then the task is doable. I mean, just think about the aspect of if we looked at the last ballot, how many names are on there? When you look at the school boards, the county boards, the library boards, in our case, the parks board, the all the different positions. Certainly, uh, no nobody can really know who these people are and their values, but a group of people can. And so that's one of the ways I sell it, especially when I'm knocking on doors. I'll say, nobody in their right mind can know who all these candidates are. But if you come to one of our meetings, then you'll be with other people, and we'll split up the work, and we'll be able to see who all these different candidates are that are out there. So that is the real important thing, is to get people involved. And if you could get somebody going to a library board meeting, and then somebody going to a trustee meeting, somebody going to a parks meeting, you get the county meetings. There's all these different meetings that you could be going and then just covering, and then actually get a couple people, because it's always more fun if you have a couple people, and then they can just report back on that. So the meetings now, even though I kind of MC them sometimes, not always, just to kind of kick it off, it really comes down to people that are following the different uh, meetings or different areas of expertise. So one of them is elections. So somebody kind of handles the elections, what's going on, and all, because there's a lot going on with all the people, and yourself included, right in the
Yeah.
middle of it.
So
Um,
and
but
so you have these committees now. You have an election integrity group. You have a community outreach group. You have a state legislation group. I think a
right,
federal legislation group too. And some of those we're trying to at Rescue Michigan trying to help coordinate. For example, state legislation is one area where you can have 100 local organizations that are all reinventing the wheel if they're all analyzing the same bill. So later on, we're going to look at our site and how people might be able to take advantage of some of these tools to cut back on that work. But there's so much that goes on at the local level. The last time I was at one of your meetings, it was just a couple weeks ago, there was a gentleman from Rochester who had said that the Rochester School Board was literally sending legal threats to people that were exposing what was going on at their meetings. Um, what's the latest with that? Are you guys going to start getting involved in Rochester now?
well, yeah, there are definitely members who are looking at, or members of people that come to our group that are looking at recalling some of the school board members at Rochester schools, and for numerous reasons. One of them is just that dereliction of duty. They're elected officials, and they want to seem to hand off all the responsibilities on the virus regulations to the superintendent, and that's just one thing. There's lots of liberal policies, and I tell most people we just really don't even know who these people are in most of these offices. So what happens is people start going to meetings, and they see how they're treated, or seeing some of the things that these elected officials say, and the next thing that naturally happens is, holy mackerel, there's got to be better people out there that can do these jobs. And they're right, there is better people out there that can do these jobs,
Yeah,
and a lot of times it's the people that come to our meetings. And so that's the other advantage when you get grassroots meetings going here, and all of a sudden you're involved with a bigger group, and then you decide you're going to run. Well, all of a sudden you got a machine behind you who is going to reach out and help you get across that line. So that's a huge advantage, and plus all the expertise that comes in there, putting signs up for people to help the labor. So yeah, the idea of having strong local groups is really the way to win elections at every level. If we did it across the state, just look at how organized we could be to elect a governor. I mean, it would be unbelievable. And what we're really trying to do, and which we haven't perfected, and but we're getting there, is we'll be having captains for street or a section of their subdivision. So that's really where you become very powerful when you have a person who represents their street, and they have a huge advantage if they're their street captain or whatever you want to call that person, because now they're friends with a lot of people on that street. And there again, even though their politics may differ, they might have a Democrat, your likelihood of convincing those people to vote for a good candidate is going to be increased by the friendship of that person, or at least that neighbor. Even if they don't have a friendship, they're a local person, and so there's a trust level that goes there. And
yeah.
so that's what we really would like to do.
You touched on two things I'd want to emphasize. One was that knocking on doors, you find the outstanding candidates for some of these offices. I remember when I was knocking on doors, the first time I was knocking on doors just to try to get my township organized and get some people together, which we did. But there was one house in my township, or in my precinct rather, that was the it was by far the biggest house in my whole precinct. It was a very, very big mansion, and the guy wasn't home. But the second time I went, I was collecting signatures for Unlock Michigan, and he was home that time. And I was expecting some kind of Scrooge McDuck kind of character to come out, but no, it was a guy who was like in his mid 40s, who was some kind of Marine Corps veteran. I remember thinking, man, this guy would be great candidate for town council. Although it turned out his brother actually is a township trustee, so he was already on that, but or essentially on that. And was the other thing I was going to mention was to Joe's point about being in the deep blue area, and you mentioned, we need organized political forces for the race for governor and attorney general and secretary of state, these statewide races. Your votes still count in Wayne County, folks, sometimes. I mean, usually they should.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, and every real vote helps. So it could be very close. It could be very close in any of the races, and having people that can maximize the vote in even more liberal areas, because those are the places where, if you don't have Republicans that think they've got a good shot at winning office, they really don't have a lot of organized campaigns. Like in Washtenaw County, our county Republican Party is not that big, not because we don't have Republicans out there, but because it's so difficult to win a race that you therefore don't have the momentum coming in from campaigns. But that doesn't mean that you can't organize people locally and that they're not going to make a difference at state level issues. So we have Go ahead, and then I have a question.
Oh, I was going to say, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, this is because you're successful. We've had some success and just because we have, and it's not that many people sometimes, but we show up and the system is not ready for that. And I'll just give you the one example, which you probably know I'm going to talk about, is we had the Oakland Township gives $800,000 a year to the Rochester Hills Library to use their library. And I mentioned earlier, we elected one guy to the Oakland Township Library Board, which their sole purpose is just basically to come up with this and write the check for this $800,000 to the Rochester Hills Library. Well, we were warned by our guy on our township. He said, hey, they're going to want a 50% increase, a millage increase. And they're going to try to put it on their ballot in Rochester. And then they're going to come over to Oakland Township and want us to do the same thing. And sure enough, he was right. Rochester Hills announced they were going to put a 50% ballot or millage increase for their library in Rochester. And then shortly after that, they approached Oakland Township. Hey, we'd like you guys to raise your millage by 50% also. So we want 1.2 million now to use our library. And so what happened was they started having meetings in Oakland Township, and a group of people started going there asking questions. Hey, we want some answers to these questions. And it was kind of funny because some of the board members in the township, they were like, hey, this is the library. Come on, man. Why are you worrying about this? These are good people.
It's Joe Biden's answer for you right there. Come on, man, when you don't know the answer to a question. Come on.
Yeah, right. Come on. What are you giving these guys a hard time for? So it took a couple of weeks, and finally said, okay. We will write a letter to Oakland or to Rochester Hills Library requesting that these residents' questions be answered. And then shortly after that, I think it was 2 or 3 days later, we saw a news release. Rochester Hills Library has decided to remove off the ballot the millage increase. So just a little pushback by us going to our board and saying we want some questions answered caused their township or caused the Rochester Hills to pull this off of the ballot. And that's how effective people can be. It really is quite surprising. We've had some success at the state level also, but I won't go into that story right here. You had a question that you wanted to ask me or make a comment about?
Yeah, William asks, how do you handle communications and transparency with your constituents? And it's not, I mean, it's fine. Please answer it. Please feel free to ask any questions about about Representative Reilly in his capacity in Lansing, because I'm sure some people have some questions about that. So yeah, communications and transparency. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I mentioned already that every time I vote, I put I tell people how I voted on a certain bill and then why I voted that way. And so pretty soon they kind of know who you are. And like Adam already said, I get attacked by some of the things because I'm too conservative. There's people that just, like higher taxes and more government, and that is not me. I mean, and then also I have office hours. Up until COVID, we were meeting every month, same time at the library. But since then, it's been pretty choppy. I haven't met as much. But I'm always available. I have a staff that handles all my takes all they return all the calls and all the emails, and believe me, we get there's a lot of kind of people that are not so friendly on the phone with the staff, so they do a great job. So
Yeah, and it's a real shame in the way they've used the coronavirus as an excuse for every kind of tyranny. And we hear about a lot of it. You hear about what they've done to the schools, what they've done to restaurants, what they've done to churches, what they've done to businesses. But you don't hear so much about how this has impacted the ability of people to engage in civic life. That we don't have that we don't have the kind of face-to-face connections that you need to communicate people's opinions about the news and about these other things. And I always tell people it's so important we fight for our right just to get together and organize and talk about these topics, because the effect of this all is to give the social media control over the dialogue, and we have to break that by getting people back into to talking about issues face to face with their own neighbors.
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. We are human beings, our community. We like to be around other people. That's a very important thing, and to try to cut that off, we do not know the consequences of that. Well, we're seeing some of them. I mean, obviously, this is driving a lot of people to depression. And but along that same line, so we had the Open Meetings Act we suspended, which requires that meetings you should have people going face to face, which is a real problem. If you're people like the groups that group that we have activists. They want to be at meetings. Uh, that's a very important thing. So because you have to be able to go face to face with people.
Yeah, and I mean, we had my county Republican Party had a meeting, and it was online just a few days ago, and the dynamics change dramatically when you're not face to face anymore. When you're meeting online, I mean, it's one thing when it's just you and me talking and we're friendly. It's another thing when people can have issues that they want to argue, and that's reasonable. That's what does happen in meetings, is that people have to sort things out. And when you have one person who controls the microphone and the usual procedures you have, like for balloting and for everything else, doesn't work the same when you're meeting online as they do in real life. Now, in Lansing, when you have your committee meetings, are they open to the public and people come in and testify on legislation?
Yeah, there's reduced. At one point, there was like reduced seating, but now they are open to the public. I believe it's a little more. There's a little more stringent. Like you have to check. There's some more safety precautions that they have but you can come to the meetings. Yeah, they can get cleared to come in there.
Okay. Yeah, I might come on Tuesday. The elections committee is hearing a few bills. Um, Not the most high impact bills in terms of election reform, but there are several election related bills coming up. Um, so, and I don't know if you want to get into the nitty gritty about those or just in general. I mean, what happened in Lansing after the lockdowns began? It seemed like the legislature almost didn't want to do anything for a long time. Are they starting to get back into the swing of things again? Are they? I mean, it's been a year. I would hope so, but are they really starting to push back about?
Yeah, I
Um,
think that with the new speaker we have, Jason Wentworth, a couple things have changed dramatically, is very promising. And one is that Jason is not a micromanager. It doesn't appear to be. Like he's giving the chairs the ability to lead and do the best job that they can, instead of maybe putting reins on them, controlling them, which has happened in the past. So, like for instance, the oversight committee with Steve Johnson, who's an excellent choice for that. Steve Johnson is trying his best to bring in individuals that are relevant to all the things that are going on with COVID or whatever the hot topics may be, and really getting down to the bottom of it as the government oversight. I mean, this is There's obviously government has lots of problems, and so that committee is really doing, I think, a pretty good job of trying to get down to the bottom of these things. And we have people are asking, okay, when are you going to have the Secretary of State come in? We have not managed to get her in yet, but I do believe this. When we go back, we're going to be able to get the subpoena power to require people to come in. So that'll be a big advantage, and I'm sure Steve will use that. And I believe the leadership is giving him, giving him the go ahead to do that, which is very promising because that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, I was going to ask if they subpoenaed the governor yet over the nursing home policy and having COVID patients sent into nursing homes. So I understand the governor she had at first refused to release the numbers and then was not counting a large number of what really are in effect senior homes as senior homes. They're only counting a certain subclassification of them, and we still haven't gotten the truth as to how many people were hurt and probably even killed because of that policy of sending the sick into the most vulnerable.
Yeah, this is definitely one area that needs to be checked out very thoroughly. Yeah, because you've just mentioned the consequences are huge and the questions are huge. So that is one area we've got to get down to the bottom of.
I remember you were telling me once that knocking on doors was one way that you were able to change people's go-to answer about Whitmer. Yeah, that when you first just ask somebody, hey, what do you think about the governor? They'd say, oh, she's fine. But then when you get to talking to them about one issue or another, then they start to open up and they start to question what their original answer was.
Yeah, well, yeah, in this day and age, I guess, people, when you come to somebody's door, they do, some people put up like a defense mechanism right off the bat, and until they know who you are a little bit, they like, okay, you're just a guy knocking on the door. But then if you say something that triggers something, and all of a sudden they recognize that, hey, you're kind of like them, or you have some of the same concerns that they do, then they bring their guard down. And yeah, those people, you can change people's minds because there may be things that they're not privy to, information that they don't know about that you do. I had a few people that and some people that I can remember when they were ready to close the door on me. I said, wait a minute, just give me 1 minute here, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And then you're able to change people's minds. So not always, but sometimes. And the whole thing is just be respectable. And anybody has to admit that we have a huge problem in our country right now, where people, when they disagree, can't dialogue back and forth in just a civil way. It's just it's unbelievably ridiculous. And so I think every time knocking on doors we should be out there demonstrating that, yeah, you can disagree and still have a good conversation. And I think what happens is, even that person who disagrees with you, when you walk away, they'll think highly of you because you did, if you didn't call them names and everything, but just tried to have a conversation, then they'll appreciate that. So, because that's so missing in our culture.
Yeah, and I think also them having to actually defend their positions on some of these issues is tough. Well, the big issue this past week was that the so-called Republican governor of Arkansas vetoed a bill to prohibit puberty blockers and chemical castration from being administered to minors, and the legislature passed it over the veto. And that's become the mainstream position of the left now, that it's okay to do that. That's okay for children to overrule their parents on this. And
I think,
and if people have to actually articulate that, you can go, wait a minute, do you know anybody who's had to go through this?
Right. I think that's I think the public is not in favor of that. I would really question that. That's yeah, I can't go. I would have a hard time believing that the majority of people would be in favor of those things.
Yeah, and we have that same issue with voter ID laws in Michigan. I was interviewed by a reporter for MERS News, and he said, well, what's going to be your answer when they say that what you're doing is racist? I said, well, it's funny that you would assume, knowing just because of how people react, that they would just assume something is racist. But the huge majority of voters don't see it that way. When I was a poll worker in the city of Detroit, there was not one voter that did not show voter ID. Not one. Every single one had it. And if they want to litigate that issue, I say, well, go ahead and let them. Got a question. Ask John, any offices upstream that you're aspiring to?
No, actually, I'm a grassroots guy, and I really am looking forward to spending more time back home organizing. I do feel very strongly that uh, what we need is we need to have local, strong locally, area strong. So I'm not aspiring to any other offices. This is it for me, I believe. So
And that is obviously heartbreaking for us to hear, but it's also totally respectful position. And I remember last week I was at a demonstration in Lansing, and I had asked if you'd wanted to come speak at it, and your response was no. I want to stay involved at the local level. If I have any time, I gotta stay involved in building the grassroots here. And it's rare that any politician, even the quote unquote conservatives, will have that kind of attitude. Usually they love to be in the limelight. That's all they want to ever do if they can help it. And the idea of staying into the shoe leather work is it's refreshing, and it's rare, because even among the conservatives, a lot of them will do all that they can to get the highest personal impact for themselves and not to actively avoid the spotlight.
think about it. Think of how effective it is to have grassroots organization. So the idea would be that because people are saying, "Hey, you should run for the Senate." Again, we have a Democrat in our area who's our senator, and but if you have a strong area, a strong grassroots organized, you are going to pull out a lot of votes. And so the idea is then you got to find candidates, and then once the candidate is found, you've got the year after year, you've got this grassroots groups that are there to support that good candidate. Even like I don't want to see to replace me. I don't want to see a candidate who has lukewarm values on liberty and doesn't oppose the growth of government. I want somebody who wants to limit government and highly values liberty. Well, that's not every Republican, believe me. And so we want to make sure that the Republicans that comes in the seat. Well, how do you do that? You have a strong, well-organized grassroots efforts across the whole district. That's going to help down the road on every election that you're in. So the time you put in for that is more beneficial than anywhere else, I believe. And if we can, and I'm sure that there's with Trump running and getting so many people engaged, people are coming out of the woodwork. That's the other thing that we're seeing. A lot of the people that are in these grassroots groups, these are not people that are necessarily been Republican their whole life or been strong voters or paid much attention to politics. But now Trump got them kind of involved, and Trump has been great as for because you can find people. Are you in favor of Donald Trump? Yeah, all of a sudden you got a friend, and this is a great thing. So yeah, so I think that you're better off spending time for me in the areas building up this grassroots network, and that's the way I want to spend my time.
Yeah, you make the point. I remember my political mentor would say, there's two paths to power, and most people only know the direct personal path, and that's the path of a politician running for office and being the one that casts the votes. But then he would say there is also an indirect path, and that is by controlling the environment around the politicians, you control them. And when you have a grassroots organization that can impose intense political pain on a politician if they do the wrong thing, then you can impact people in more than one election and more than one seat.
Right.
And
Yep.
and even as a state representative, where you can make it sound enormous by saying you're the sole representative of 90,000 people in Michigan, but you can also make it sound very small and say I am 110th of one half of 1/3 of my state government. and and that's the reality, is that what really will make the difference in the country is not going to be one leader. It's not going to be just Donald Trump. It's not going to be just whoever the next nominee for governor is. It's going to be the grassroots movement that is able to affect the change across the board to get our liberty back. It's not going to be just one thing. And that's why with Rescue Michigan Coalition, our main policy focus right now is on election integrity, because it's so important, and it's of such a high level of interest to the public. And I think probably our secondary, if not co-equal, area of issue focus is restoring our liberty and ending the lockdowns. But the the vehicle for those issues, to me, are the vehicle for building the grassroots throughout the whole state. That's the big thing that we're lacking, is that there are no local organizations in many places. And maybe you have something in your county, but few people can say they've got an organization meeting regularly in their city or township, even when they have thousands of people living there who, many of whom are passionate and just have never had someone knock on their door to invite them to a meeting.
Yeah, I think one of our goals is to just try to find a system that works. I mean, we're like I said, we're learning right now, but once we have figure out exactly what works the best, like what kind of committees we need to have, and how you actually ask people to get involved. I mean, one of the things we're just figuring out is when you come to a meeting and you're head of one committee, you have to have a list of things that you can ask specifically. Hey, can somebody attend this meeting, or can somebody make up a list of all the meeting dates or whatever? And then so there's all these little things that we're learning. But once you have that set up, then we'll be able to go into adjoining communities. We'll be able to go down into Troy, right? Like Troy right now is it used to be Republican with Marty Hollerack, who was our state representative, but now it's a Democrat. And we'll be able to take our group knowledge and come alongside people that are down in that area. And there's delegates already there. So you know all these Republican delegates, but most of them are not organized, and you can come alongside them and take what we're learning here into other areas, and it can spread quite easily. Already, there's people coming to our, hey, can you start a group out here in Waterford? Can you start one in this area and that area? And we're not doing that. We're just trying to perfect this so that we can have a good system going. We're learning as we go.
Yeah, it's like they say, build. You should aspire to build systems, not goals. And
Yeah.
the system is what has to sustain things, because I think you mentioned near the beginning that when a group is run by just one person, and then the life happens and the one person leaves and suddenly the whole thing falls apart, and you can't have that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just too much pressure on that one person.
I see a lot of comments in the chat, and Philip says, John, we were so hoping you'd run for state senate. Hey, amen, Philip. But if you guys have questions for the representative, we've got maybe another 15 minutes, so please ask your questions if you have any. We didn't have as many people on this week as last week. We switched the format from our previous meetings were done on Zoom, and we had a great Zoom chat last week, and unfortunately there was a technical glitch and it wasn't recorded, and we thought, well, let's try a live stream. We'll see how it goes on YouTube. I think technically it's worked fine. I don't know if we have fewer viewers this week because of it being on YouTube, or if it's because we did an email blast about it, I think 2 days ago, or no, yesterday, and not today, whereas last week we had one the day of. So that might be it. But again, folks, we're going to be doing these live streams every week. So every Saturday, if possible, and let me know in the chat or on the forum that I'll be showing you in a moment if there's maybe a better time for more people. I don't know if Saturday evening is always the best time, or if it's dinner time for too many folks. We can always try moving things around, but there's no way to accommodate everybody's schedule, so we're just trying to do the best that we can here.
I would like to mention a little bit about the one bill that we dialogued, and I think you've got some information on your website. Yeah, you do, about SB 250,
Yeah.
which is this is a bill that came out of the Senate, and I had not known about it. You can't track all these bills, even though you're a state representative. You're there. There's a lot of bills. Things happen very, very quickly in Lansing. Unfortunately, that's the way Lansing is. It's not a good thing. I don't agree with it. I think we make way too many bills. We have way too much stuff going on at too fast of a pace. But at one of our meetings, one of the gentlemen said, "Hey, what about this Senate Bill 250?" And I said, I don't really know anything about it. So we had the overhead and we had the computer hooked up. We pulled it up. We saw that it's all these Republicans voted for it, and came out of the Senate. But it was a bill that had lots of regulation on there, based off of it had to do with COVID and or similar diseases or issues that health hazards, and where they wanted to make gathering numbers, the number of people that can gather, dependent on how many people were in the hospital for that disease, and also how many people were tested for it,
Yep.
with it. And so these are two areas that, so these are skeptical areas. It's data driven, and now we want to put into law uh, uh, that you can only have like 25% if these are the numbers. And it's basically driven, we believe, by the Restaurant Association. And
Yep.
just so what can happen in Lansing, things move at a very fast pace. You've got these people, which we really feel for the Restaurant Association, because they're getting just creamed over all these rules that we've got coming out of from the governor. But they came up with what they thought was a good fix, and then unfortunately, like I say, things move at a very fast clip, and I think Senate just got caught off guard, and they and because the sponsor is a very conservative senator, and a lot of the people that signed on the bill were conservatives, but they passed it out along party lines. We believe the Democrats did not vote for it because they wanted more mandates in there. And so this is headed to the House now. And my hope is that it goes nowhere. And it just kind of, we said, wow, this is not what we want. One of the advantages is that I know that groups like Rescue Michigan and others were getting the word out about this bill to other people. I know I've been getting calls at the office about it. And this is
Yeah.
rare. Yeah, this is rare, and this is a big deal. When you can get ahead of, like, when you can spot something early that's problematic, and then the grassroots gets wind of it, and they start letting their representative know early on. That's a huge advantage because it's much better to put that warning sign out there. So then, so if the representative has, I'm getting all these calls about this bill, and it doesn't look too good. Well, then when somebody comes up and says, "Oh, this is the greatest bill since sliced bread," this is a great bill. It's like, well, wait a minute. I've already kind of been pre-warned. This is not a great bill. So that really is helpful when bad legislation does come up. If the grassroots gets an early jump on it, sees that it's bad, and that's one of the things that one of our committees does. So that's what they're doing. They're looking at bills as soon as they come out. And in this case, as it came out of the committee, but sometimes before the committee even gets it, they're aware of bills. So the so we'll see what happens with SB 250. My hope is that it just kind of dies, and we say, well, that was just a mistake. I hope it's not going to get pushed any harder, because that is definitely not the kind of bill that I would be in favor of. I do not want to put into law bills basing occupancy rates on data that is like that. I think that here again, the true answer is the restaurant owner or the business owner is the one that should be making these decisions. He cares more and knows more about the specific situation than anybody else, and he's the one that should be making those decisions. And so to make laws up to put the government in control of setting that, I'm not in favor of. And I think most conservatives out there or people who value liberty are not in favor of those kinds of bills.
Yeah, and by the way, since you mentioned Senate Bill 250, we still have time to stop it in the House. They weren't in session last week, so we're still collecting signatures. And in our call last week, we talked a little bit about this, but since we lost the recording anyway, might as well talk about it again. People have the impression that you don't get anywhere contacting your legislators or writing your congressman, and the reality is they really do pay attention to what is the public mad about, because they're constantly in fear of alienating any major constituency. If they're in a swing seat, they don't want to lose the next election, and even if they're in a safe seat, you guys up there, and maybe not you yourself, but I know your colleagues constantly worry about losing majority. It is a never-ending thing, and they don't want a bill that's going to make a whole lot of people hop and mad. And I think with what we've done with the petition, that'll probably help. And by the way, I want to show everybody on the screen here. You can see this is the articles at rescuemichigan.com. If you go to our website, just click on the articles tab, and it'll come right up. And I made this post the other day. Here's how your county would be locked down under Senate Bill 250, where we really broke it down. Because what the bill actually does is it says the state health health director or your county health director can lock you down based upon the test positivity rate for the average of the past 7 days. And some of the details of the bill are easy to miss. The fact that it doesn't say how long the duration would be of a given lockdown. It says that they may impose a lockdown, but it must be under these conditions if they do. Well, here's what the conditions are. I made a link where it says here are the results. It'll pull up a page here where for every county in Michigan, you can see exactly what the number of test positivity rate was for every day this year for the past 7 days on average, which is what the bill would rely on if it became a law. And so for each day, for each county, it says whose restrictions were worse, what you'd get from the state or what you'd get from your county. And then it says, here's what HB 250, or that's a typo, I should say SB 250, would allow that day. And if you scroll through, you see the numbers go up and down, especially for the more rural counties. They vary widely. And then most recently, the state's average for test positivity is over 15%. So we'd be totally shut down now if the health department wanted it to. This wouldn't stop that at all. In fact, it would just say if you want to do anything, you have to do this. You couldn't do partial capacity. You'd either be you're fully open or you completely shut down. So going back to what the restaurant association's approach was, one of the things is a lot of lobbyists in Lansing only understand the access-based theory of politics, which is that they schmooze with you, they explain to you what the issue is, why they like your bill, and if you vote for it, they might talk their clients into giving you a campaign contribution. And that's pretty much all that they know. What they don't have is the confrontational approach, where they say, if you shut us down again, we're going to let every single one of our restaurant owners know that you need to be voted out of office because you're a radical. We're going to fund your opponents. We're going to fund your primary challengers, and on and on and on it goes. And lobbyists, especially the multi-client lobbyists, they can't do that because they represent more than one industry, and they don't want to lose their access by making a politician angry. But when you're the restaurant association and your only client is the restaurant industry, it's almost like I watched the committee hearing in the Senate, and it was almost like they were just begging, can you please just give us anything? We're so distraught, we're so destroyed. Can you just give us this at least? And what they're essentially asking for is, they think, next to nothing, and I'd say maybe even worse than nothing. And it's sad when things get to that point.
So I just wanted to throw in another idea here too, is that to your listening audience, what we were really missing in some of these committees is getting people who have different views than, for instance, this bill right here. SB 250. It would have been great to have somebody a grassroots person, anybody who said, wait a minute, isn't this bill, couldn't this be used against us, or just pointing out some of the things that Adam pointed out right here and testifying on these things at a committee hearing.
We will be if they bring this up in committee. Now that that's on our radar, we certainly will.
Yeah. There's tons of opportunity. We've got a set of bills that passed out of natural resources that had to do with recycling, and we had one guy looking at it. Unfortunately, we didn't get there in time, or he didn't get there in time. But it would have been great to have him testify on those bills, because there's some real issues with that whole set of bills on recycling and composting and landfills. A lot of regulation, and we need to get the public in to testify on some of these bills. And it's a great opportunity. And it may only give you 3 minutes, but it would be great. I have some memorable times when we had people come in that were just off the street, and they gave some great testimony because they're in the trenches. They see all this stuff, and they got great detail to tell you what's going on that the lobbying groups maybe not are going to divulge. So.
Right. Yeah. I remember some committee hearings where you had someone who wasn't in with the lobbying corps, but just was fired up about the issue. They'd heard about the bill and came in to just lay out their perspective that you would never hear if they hadn't done that. And that's why it's so important that we provide this kind of coverage. I think this might be a good moment to point out that getting involved in Rescue Michigan is going to be a big help for us to be able to organize the grassroots, because what those people needed in those hearings is to be backed up by the phone calls, to be backed up by the emails, so that the members understand that this is an issue that if they just go along with what the go along get along line is, that there are going to be some constituents that are going to know about it and they're going to respond negatively to it, and that maybe it's not a good idea to just keep on moving these things forward. And the two aspects of the site, the first thing is, as far as petitions go, you can actually create your own petitions at rescuemichigan.com. I am now logged in. If you create an account at Rescue Michigan, if you go to the action tab, the Grassroots HQ, we have a tool that we made where you can create your own petitions that will go directly to the legislature. And this is also a tool for you guys. It's not just for our benefit and not just for the policy, but as people sign your petitions, they're adding their emails and zip codes to the list, and that's a tool for you to help build up your local organization as well. That here you've got people that are signing the petition, And if the word spreads around online and more people start sending it, they're people that you can reach out to. So this is a tool for mutual benefit for and this is what we call an opportunity battle. When we're fighting a bad bill, that we're making good policy by opposing the bill, and we're also growing the organization by collecting signatures. And that's something that we don't want to be only doing ourselves. We want to empower everybody to do. And we also have a new tool down here on, this was just added today. It's still in testing. I was going to put out an email blast and ask people to start posting, but what I want to do first is ask the folks who are watching now. There's only a few of us, unfortunately, but maybe we can get some more people to start posting, so that when I do a big email blast to our whole list of tens of thousands of people, that they see there's already some things there, because it's hard to get a forum going. But we made these forums where there's these different categories. So you can talk about state legislation right here, organize with local groups. This one actually expands into different local areas where people can chat and talk about what's on their mind. We created a few categories: health for the COVID stuff, campaigns and candidates, law and justice, mass media deceptions. And if you have any questions or comments or things that you want to see added to our site, or things that aren't easy to use, there's a Rescue Michigan support form as well. And by the way, for some of the grassroots tools, like to get to your voter files, there is a $35 fee, because we have to pay for the files ourselves. Plus, it keeps the other side out. But the forums are free to use. So if you have an account, or you create one for free at Rescue Michigan, just create an account, sign up, log in, and you can start posting. So I'd really encourage everybody tonight to start filling in these forums, because right now, I said for, the plural of forum is actually fora. But people are so accustomed to saying forums that now I don't know which to say, and that's I actually ended up saying both. But anyway, you can see there's almost no posts here at all, because it really was just me and Shane testing them out. But we really want to start getting people involved in using these. So please help us get started. Go ahead and create some posts. You can share links. You can discuss whatever you'd like to discuss. We don't have tools for putting in images and video just yet, only because I don't know if I don't know if that's going to be safe. We don't know if it'll be safe from trolls to allow people to post links to images just yet, but at least start putting in content. If you guys like to talk, if you like to comment on people's blogs, well, here's a place to start commenting right here. So we really do want to encourage people to start using the tools and to make the site more interactive. We also are going to be opening up the articles for comments, and people can write their own articles as well. If you go to the Grassroots HQ, there's also a tool for you to be able to make your own posts, so you can do that too. So please check that out as well. So again, the idea, folks, is all of these things are to be able to help us coordinate, to be able to use all these tools for our benefit. It's not just, we're not trying to be an organization where all we do is ask you for money and spend the money on advertising. And some groups do that, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. You know, Unlock Michigan did a lot of great work last year. Their focus now seems to be on raising money for running attacks against the governor, attorney general, and secretary of state, and that's fine. I'm happy with that. But what we need is a tool that the grassroots can use, where we empower you. And that's what this is all about, is giving you the voter files so that you can knock on doors in your own precinct, so that you're not just feeding in data for a campaign or for the party. You're building the list that you have access to, that you have ownership of, that enable you to build your own organization. And so finally, I'd be remiss to not point out that we still have 1 week left to raise money, where that donation will be matched by David Dudenhofer. So if you can contribute to this, we want to start hiring some people. We want to be able to have a full-time lobbyist in Lansing who can look at all the bills and oppose the ones that need opposing and encourage the ones that need encouraging. And someone that can travel around and network with these grassroots groups that we're finding popping up everywhere, and give them the advice that they need to get started and how to build and grow, not just rise up and die off the way so many Tea Party groups did. And frankly, I'd like to have someone that works on the website, because right now I'm doing all three of those duties at once, and this is a much bigger project than one person can do. And the reality is, the more that we the more impact that we have. Hold on. Joe is asking, he's having trouble finding the form. Joe, what you'll do, I'll show you. If you go to look at the top of the page, under Action, you click on Grassroots HQ, and then you scroll down. I'll add a top-level link too, but right now it's at the bottom of the main menu on Grassroots Central. So if you see you said, do you have a direct link to share? If you look at the address bar at the top of my screen. It says rescuemichigan.com/gc.php. That's your main grassroots central control panel. Then from there you click on the forum. I'll add a hot link to the action tab after this too. That'll show up once you're logged in. And please also feel free to post in the Rescue Michigan support forum right here your recommendations for how to make the site more user friendly. Because believe me, I know there's a lot of content here. There's a lot to go through. And it's all just been kind of constructed piece by piece. So, I've tried to make it pretty, but I know there's a lot more that could always be done with organization. So please let me know your recommendations. Joe says none of the pull downs are working for me right now. Okay, well try this. If you just click on the home page, it should say right there, you are logged in. Visit Grassroots HQ for all of your grassroots leadership tools. And you click on that, and that should take you to Grassroots HQ. So you could do it that way as well. So let me know if that doesn't work. In the meantime, I've been going on for a while now, and I wanted to get back to, well, I don't know, Representative, what are your thoughts about all this, about building a statewide, wait, hold on, I think he's asking me again. Okay, Joe, you shouldn't need to use a pull down. There's no pull downs that you need to use. If you go to the home page, just click on the logo, it'll take you to the home page. There's a link right here. It just says visit Grassroots HQ. If you really get completely stuck, Joe, if you can take a screenshot and email it to me, I can take a look. Or maybe after this, if you send me an email right away with your phone number, I'll give you a call and maybe we can do a screen share or something. So I'll try to help you through debugging this. But anyway, I don't want to take up more of the representative's time here. So going back, John, I mean, what do you make of all this? Is there any group out there right now that's like contacting you guys about legislative topics in any kind of structured manner, or do you see this being something that might actually be making a real impact in Lansing?
I would say this is cutting edge. I mean, this is exactly what we need. This is not, I mean, this is fabulous. The ability to go up and actually to see who lives around you, get that database for the people around you, and lots of information about these people too. It's just an unbelievable gift. I mean, this is fantastic. And it's really just up to us to learn this. And that's one of the things that we're going to be with our groups. So we're just going to be digging into this and seeing the capabilities that we have in this site, because there's nothing like this. I've not seen anything else like this that actually is tailored to grassroots, which is truly, besides God intervening, I see no other way that we can basically make a difference in our political system, because it has so many problems. So it has to happen from the bottom up. We have to get good candidates, and we have to get good candidates locally at every level. And those local candidates then go up to higher up they go up to higher level offices. So most people are quite surprised when they see who they have representing them. And most people, and that's just the way the politicians like it, is that you don't know who they are, that you don't know their values. And so we really have not, most people don't pay attention to what's going on around them. And these tools that are in here will help us to get more involved and to work with other people, get to know other people around us. And this is a great opportunity to by using this website. I love it. Yep.
Well, thank you for the kind words, John. Joe says working in Chrome, not Firefox. Okay, that's good to know. I am using Brave for my browser. That is my preferred go-to. If you don't know about Brave, it was started by, I think actually, he used to work at Mozilla, which is the foundation that created Firefox. But Brave is more privacy focused and very cool. So check out Brave browser if you haven't already. If anyone has any more questions for John, please ask right now, because otherwise I think we will wrap up the stream, guys. It's a gorgeous Saturday night. Maybe that's why we don't have more people in the stream tonight. So maybe next week we'll try a different time. But at least technically speaking, I think everything worked properly, and it'll be on YouTube. So if people want to watch at their own convenience, they'll be able to do that, and we'll try to have more of these. So seeing no further comments in the chat, Representative, thanks so much for your time. It really has been a pleasure, and always to hear from people that have proven how effective knocking on doors really can be. Because, you know, folks, it's so easy to do anything else. It's so easy to spend all of your time posting things online and sending out emails. And I see your question, Joe. I'll show you one more time. We go to Action, Grassroots HQ, or you just click on Grassroots HQ, and in the fourth row, it's the first item in the fourth row, Forum. Click on it there. And now you see also the address at the top. If you really get stuck, there's the address, rescuemichigan.com/forum.php. All right, so anyway, had my thought interrupted there. The shoe leather work is what nobody wants to do. But once you start doing it and you make these connections, you'll get a few doors slammed in your face, and then you'll find somebody who says, I've been waiting for someone like you to knock on my door. And what a difference that makes.
You can expand your database and your friends, and you'll find lots more people to play euchre with, and it's a win-win all the way around. So yeah. I just wanted to say a closing thing here too. Would be, and this is no surprise to you, Adam, but I think one of the best podcasts out there is the Ron Paul Liberty Report. And so if somebody's looking for a place to really get a well-rounded take on all the things that are happening around us, I cannot think of a better person to listen to. Some guy who's been in the trenches, been through all this political stuff, has fought against the system, has had great legislation. He's just, and he's still with us and still out there every day reporting for 25 minutes every week or every day. So I just recommend that highly, and I do that to the groups that we go that we have here in Oakland Township and in Oxford. So
great. Well, thanks again for all that you do, and I hope we find more candidates like you for this next cycle, because we need more John Reillys in the state legislature. We don't have enough. So thanks again, John. It's been wonderful. Thank you all for tuning in, and